excited about this one. This one is a really fun. The reason why I'm so excited about it is it's because it's just pure play. It's just a really nice way to spend a little bit of time. Use up all of your junk because it's the main material is just all of your scrap papers, junk mail, all of that kind of stuff, and the recycle buttons that we made in the last video. Recycle buttons, recycle buttons. I'm really excited. This is back to basics with tools. You don't need anything, you know. I see so many of the the flower making tutorials that require a die cutting machine or punchers or special kinds of ribbon, something like that, and you do not need any of that with this. Yeah, just really happy about this one. It's not going to stay. Right, okay, the junk that we are going to use is anything that you have around your studio, so painted pages that you have left over, leaflets or packaging. I really like the colours of these things, so we'll use them. Tissue box, that will work fine, or packaging. And what it needs to be is something that's got quite a nice thickness. I'm not saying paper won't work, it will work. It just can't be uber thin. So here I have some children's book pages, and they're not cardboard by any means, but they've got a little bit of weight to them. They'll be fun to use. And then of course what the main thing that you can use, especially if you want to use it in your scrapbooking, so you want it to be acid free, is scrap papers. Patterned papers or cardstock. Works great. So what we want to do first is just cut up our paper. So we're going to use basic flower making techniques, but we're just going to make it with our own funky formed flowers. So to make our flower shapes first off, what I'm doing is I'm just folding it into a quarter, and now I'm going to just make some petals. Now what you need to do as you are creating your petals is make sure that the edge that you go across on one side is as far down, is the same length down as what it will be on the other side. So what I often do is do it this way and then flip it over just to make sure I keep it quite even. And you can change your flower shapes as you go along. You can make it into a point, you can make it into a circle, does not matter. So that you get something like that. Now I use all of the paper. I don't worry about the little scraps on the end because we're going to add some more interest onto our flowers. Now what you need to know is, because we are going to use just basic flower making techniques, you're going to lose one of these petals. So what this layer of flower is going to be is only 3 layers of petal. So if you don't want to have all of them as 3, what you can then do is find another piece of paper. Is fold it over again. So rather than doing it into quarters, you can do it into 1/8 by folding it again and cutting it this way. Like that. I did it on a bit too small a paper, but you get the idea. Or what you can do is just fold it over into quarters and do a double petal. Now what I mean by that is, imagine you're drawing a heart or cutting a heart. This will give you double petals. Like that. So what I tend to do is I tend to do a bunch together, and I just keep them in a plastic wallet, and I like to use all different kinds of shapes and things in the same flower because I think it gives it a lot of a nicer looking flower with lots of different textures and papers going on. So that is what I'm going to do for my flowers, but if you want, you can make uniform flowers using the same pattern paper or the same cut, whatever. It's entirely up to you. And you can go all out bling on your flowers. You can leave them as they are and ignore the next couple of stages if you like. I tend to do a little bit on them, not a load on them, but what I like to do is to do a little bit of doodling. If you've been watching my videos recently, you know I'm into doodling at the moment. And what I do is I take a black Sharpie and a white paint pen, and I just kind of define the petals a little bit more, because what it does is it makes it look like they are supposed to be petals. It's not like they're just cut out of a piece of paper and made to be a petal. It's kind of like that is their purpose, is a petal. Now, as I said, you only get 3 of the leaves, so you can only just do a few of them, 3 of them, and leave 1 if you want to. But what I often do is do all of them first, and then pick out later on which one I like the most, or which one I least like, sorry, and then use that one as the one that I don't use. You can do proper artwork if you like, rather than just doodles. It just helps define the shape of the petals, if you can see as I go around. Now what I usually do when the paint pen dries is then I just go around the edges that the white has consumed the black. It's still wet, so it's not going to do it, but usually I go back around that. And then what I do is I take a contrasting ink pad colour, this one for example, and go around the edges, because again it defines the petal shape and makes it look like that is what it's supposed to be. So just go around the edge, very quick, very straightforward. I again like using contrasting colours. You can again use the same colours if you want. It's entirely up to you how much you do or leave. These flowers are still going to look fun and funky even if you don't do that much to artify them up. Okay, so again I like to do a few of them and then pick and choose which ones I want to put together to build up my flower. And sometimes I can use only 3 layers for a flower, other times I will use 6 or 7. Entirely it depends how I'm feeling when I come to do it. I like to make really unique looking flowers, so each one speaks to me individually. And I like to do this. I like to have completely different shapes, text pages, paint pages, everything together so that it looks completely unique, and I want all of my flowers to look unique. So what our next stage is to get to here is we first need to cut into each of the petals to give them a little bit more room for us to manipulate them. Okay, now how we manipulate it is I just grab the size of a scissor and I just curl the edges, including the one that you are not going to be using, that you're not going to see. You need to curl that over as well. Okay, so on this flower, as you can see, I have not done one of the petals, so we know which one it is that I'm going to be using. And I'm just going to cut on that one right into the centre, because what we are going to do is overlap one petal onto the other so it gives us this peak, and it gives us a proper petal flower shape, whereas that's just a bit flat. If it was like that, it would always be flat. This gives it proper movement and makes it look more like a flower. So we want to stick that together, and all I do is stick a little bit of double-sided tape on it. Occasionally I'll stick a bit of Eileen's tacky glue in there as well, depending on the kind of paper I'm using, if it needs extra support or not. And then what I do is just trim off the excess of the under petal. Okay, And there you have your first layer of a flower. Now let me show you what that's like with a double petal. You go again by cutting in so that you can manipulate the petals. You then manipulate the petals first. So let's take this one into the middle so we can overlap here. What you can do is overlap it like that so that it becomes a 6-petal flower, or you can do it like that so it becomes a 7-petal flower. Now on some of them they work really well, the 7-petal. I think I've got one here. Yeah, there's one that's worked fine. But on this one it looks a bit funny, I think, a little bit misshapen being 7 petals. So I will take that one to be a 6-petal one. It entirely depends on the actual flower itself, I've found. But that is a way that you can get a 7-petal flower as well as 6 and 3, you know, just so that you've got a different looking petal. Right, so when you have a few together, start with the larger ones and start layering them up to see what you like together. And you can have all sorts of combinations. Don't know, I'll decide when I come to glue it. So what you want to do is use Eileen's tacky glue and put a dollop in the centre. And find the best way for it to fit. Next one, do it again. I like to put my 3 petals in alternative lean. See, it wants to go like that, but I don't want it like that. So keep fiddling about until it's happy. I think I will put this one in as well. Okay, and now what I do, because the bottom is still pointed, that glue kind of makes the card in the middle a little bit more damp, a little bit more manipulatable. So what I do once it's got to that point is I just put my thumb in it and I just push the point down to make it flat. So now I'm going to be able to stick that on a page or something, and it's got a flat surface to do so. And what that also does by pushing down is it kind of fuses your layers of flour together. So this one that was a little bit disgruntled where it was laying is now going to stick down firm. Okay, so now it is button time. Putting out the buttons that I have so I can figure out what I would like in the centre. And sometimes I like ones that match and sometimes I like ones that contrast. It's entirely, see, that I don't like together. It's okay. See how just with a different button it gives it an entirely different look. I could spend ages trying to pick one, you know. I think I'm going to go for this one. Now, you can either just stick... People have been asking me what to do with leftover bits of yarn and twine and things like that. So you can either take a bit that is teeny tiny, like half of this size, and just thread it through and knot it as I have done with this one, and then stick it onto the flower with tacky glue, or you can do as I have done with this one, and actually thread it through itself and use that to adhere it together. Now this one is made entirely with the waste paint from projects. You know, the crafty solutions for using up waste paints, ink sprays, that video. This flower I made entirely from that. It's only 3 layers. And what I used was decorative scissors rather than plain ones. Ones like this for the petals. So you've got different ways to make the flowers. You don't have to stick to the way that I'm doing it. Walk around with things sticking out of my head. Next project, refinding adulthood. Flowers, recycled flowers.